This is Lesson 8 in Domain 8 on Animals and Habitats. Now, the last lesson we learned and explored a little bit about the freshwater habitats, and today we're going to talk about another water habitat, which is going to be the exact opposite of a freshwater habitat, which is going to be a saltwater habitat. Now, for many years, only 4 oceans in the world were recognized, and those were the Arctic, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Indian, which were all saltwater habitats. Some years ago, though, the Southern Ocean, which lies along the coastline of Antarctica, was designated as the 5th ocean. And these are going to be the majority of the different water habitats. Most of the world is covered in water, and most of that water is going to be saltwater habitat. At the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to explain key parts of the saltwater habitat and explain how animals have adapted to live there. And it's going to be a little bit different than the freshwater habitats because the saltwater is different than the freshwater. But like always, before we get started, we have some vocabulary words to go over. The first one is plankton. Those are very small animals or plants that drift in salt or freshwater. Regeneration, the process of regrowing a body part, such as a limb or an organ. Shallow, not deep. Slopes, inclines, or is it at an angle? And valleys, lowlands between two areas of high land. So our main character Rattenborough is going to get us started and take us through this saltwater habitat and show and explain to us what is in this habitat. Welcome to the last habitat that we are going to explore. In the last read aloud, we explored freshwater habitats. Now we're going to learn about another kind of water habitat, a saltwater habitat. Saltwater habitats, as you could guess from their name, contain lots of salt. This means that we can't use salt water for drinking. Would you like to drink a cup of salty water? No, thank you. It's hard to imagine, but most of the earth is covered in water, then is covered with land. Most of that water is salt water in oceans and seas. Oceans are huge areas of salt water that stretch all around our planet, and they are home to almost half of the world's species of animals and millions of different plants. The water in the ocean comes from rain as well as from rivers and streams that flow into the ocean. Seas are smaller areas of salt water that have land around them or around part of them. I've come to the largest ocean, the Pacific Ocean, to show you a bit more about ocean habitats and the plants and animals that live in them. I'm standing on a beach looking out at the water. You can see that the waves are crashing onto the beach. This beach, and any land that runs alongside the ocean, is called a coastline or shoreline. Now, you may think that when you are standing on the land looking at the water, that the land stops where the water starts. It certainly looks that way. But let me get my trusty scuba gear out and walk into the water. Now that I'm in here, I'm still standing on land. It's just that the land is under the water. The land slopes downward the farther I go out into the water, which means the water is getting deeper and deeper. An interesting thing about the ocean floor, which is the land under the ocean water, is that it isn't flat. As on land, the earth beneath the ocean waters has both mountains and valleys. This makes some areas of water in the ocean deeper than others. The Pacific Ocean is full of both plant and animal life, but not all of them share the same space. The conditions under the water are very different in various places. Some parts are deep and some are shallow. There are cool parts and there are warmer parts, and there are dark parts and there are some that are full of light. There are plants and animals in nearly every part of the ocean, some in the deep, open waters far from the land, and some in the shallow waters closer to the shore. Some animals, like turtles, jellyfish, and crabs, live closer to the shore where it's shallower and warmer. Some animals like it better near the surface of the water, and others prefer to live down at the very bottom of the ocean on the deep ocean floor. For instance, the animals that live in the deeper parts of the ocean, like these ones, had to adapt to their habitats. They have had all different kinds of adaptations to the conditions of their habitats. For instance, the animals that live in the deeper parts of the ocean had to adapt to total darkness because the sun's light just can't reach that deep. Some fish, like the devilfish, have very large mouths and sharp teeth so that they can catch their prey as easily as possible. Other sea creatures have feelers on their bodies that help them feel where their food is. And some animals make their own light with special chemicals in their body, like when you carry a flashlight in the dark. I have now arrived at a special part of a saltwater habitat called a coral reef, which is made up of many tiny animals called corals. Corals stay in one place all their adult lives. They have stomachs and mouths and even skeletons. These skeletons can be on the inside or outside of the coral animals and are also called coral. When the coral animal dies, its skeleton remains in place and other coral animals will come and live on top of the old skeletons. The colony in which the coral lives is called a coral reef. I'm here in the Pacific Ocean at a coral reef. In addition to the coral, there are many other kinds of animals around a reef. I have found everything from fish and shellfish to octopi and sharks to snails and turtles. Here is an animal that lies in and around this coral reef and whose name most of you can probably guess based on its shape. Can you guess it? You ready? It's a starfish. This starfish, also known as a sea star, has 5 arms, which make it look like a star. Although it is called a starfish, it's not actually a fish. It belongs to a group of animals that have a spiny skin all over their bodies. If I touch the starfish, I can feel that its body is covered with tiny, hard bumps that help protect it from predators such as sharks, manta rays, and other fish. Starfish are also able to protect themselves in another amazing way. If another animal actually catches and bites off one of the starfish's arms, the starfish will not die, and it can still escape. In time, a new arm will grow back to replace the missing arm. When an animal regrows a missing body part, it's called regeneration, and it is amazing. The starfish doesn't swim. It crawls very slowly around the ocean floor using hundreds of tiny tube feet. These feet attach to whatever the starfish is crawling over. As it crawls along the floor, the starfish is always on the lookout for food. This starfish's prey includes fish, snails, clams, oysters, and crabs. Here is another animal that lives in saltwater. This shellfish is called a lobster. Lobsters live on the ocean floor in openings between rocks. Their hard shell stops most other animals from trying to eat them. Lobsters have many legs that they use for crawling about, and they use antennae on their head to feel their way along the murky ocean floor. I have to watch out for that lobster's claws. They're called pincers, and they are very strong. The lobster uses them to defend itself against its prey and to catch and crush its own food. Lobsters are carnivores. They eat fish, worms, and other shellfish. I'm going to move out of the way of this lobster before I get squeezed. Looks like I moved right into the path of another predator. This is a hammerhead shark. If you take a look, you can see how the hammerhead got its name. Its head is very thick, and it looks like a hammer from above, with an eye and a nostril on each end. The hammerhead shark is a large fish, growing up to 20 feet long and weighing over 500 pounds. That's about the same weight as 10 first graders. Hammerheads like to live in warm waters, so they are mostly found near the coast where the waters are shallow and warmer. Sharks are carnivores. The hammerhead's favorite food is a fish called a ray, but it also likes to eat octopus, lobster, crab, and fish, including other sharks. Most sharks have smooth and slender bodies, which help them swim fast. Their mouths are full of sharp teeth to help them catch their prey. Let's go back up to the surface. There's a sea animal I'm sure you'll want to see, but we have to travel farther out to sea away from the coral reef and into the deeper water to see it. This amazing creature is the biggest animal in the world. It's a blue whale. Blue whales have blue-gray skin and are covered in a layer of blubber that helps keep them warm in the frigid ocean depths. Blue whales are so big that they can weigh as much as 25 elephants. In fact, blue whales are the biggest animals known to have lived on Earth, even bigger than dinosaurs. The blue whale spends all its time living in deep water, but unlike fish, it can't breathe underwater because it does not have gills. It needs to breathe air just like you and I do. The blue whale can hold its breath and stay underwater for as long as 30 minutes before eventually coming up for air. It breathes using blowholes on the top of its head. Sometimes, when it does come up for air, it breathes out a huge fountain of water from the blowholes. Blue whales are carnivores. They eat lots of food to build up their blubber during the summer months when the food is easy to find. Blue whales eat teeny tiny sea creatures called plankton. The plankton that blue whales eat are small shrimp-like shellfish that are about the size of your little finger. It's incredible to think that the biggest animal on Earth eats one of the smallest animals on Earth. The ocean is so huge and deep that we could spend all year looking at all the plants and animals that live there and still not see them all. In fact, there are still many living things in the ocean that people and adventurous rats have not even discovered yet. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the animals in this saltwater habitat and in the Pacific Ocean. We still have one more stop to make on our worldwide tour of habitats. I'll see you next time. So this was the saltwater habitat, and that ends the lesson on this habitat. If you need a refresher on anything, please go back and review this video. Once you're done, head back to Seesaw and complete the activity for saltwater habitats.